Until very recently, Marvel Studios avoided crossing the line into R-rated territory in its films. That's why most of these scenes never made their way to the screen.
Loki sex scenes, a topless Gamora, Tony Stark dropping weapons-grade F-bombs. There's no way these R-rated scenes were making it into the final cuts of MCU films. Marvel takes some artistic liberties with the Grandmaster in Thor Ragnarok. The character's comedy is edgier than most in the MCU. Perhaps the most not-safe-for-work moment in the movie is when Valkyrie mentions the Grandmaster uses his spaceship for orgies, actually saying the word rather than hinting at it.
Did you just say the Grandmaster used it for orgies?
Yeah. Don't touch anything.
Director Taika Waititi had plans for the Grandmaster to be even cruder. In fact, in a deleted scene, the Grandmaster has, for lack of a better term, tentacle sex. As Thor and Bruce Banner ride together in a ship stolen from the Grandmaster's fleet, it becomes apparent that the ruler has used this particular vessel before. A table in the middle of the ship displays holographic videos, and Thor opens one of the Grandmaster passionately fondling two tentacles. Even for the Grandmaster, the scene would have been out of place in a PG-13 movie. Seeing all three live-action versions of Spider-Man together in 2021's Spider-Man No Way Home was a dream come true. While many of the action sequences with Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire sharing the screen are thrilling, one of the most special moments comes just before the final battle. As the three Peter Parkers wait for the imminent arrival of their foes, they calmly chat about life, their striking similarities, and their remarkable differences. While talking, they discover that Tobey's Peter can shoot webs directly from his wrist. Tom and Andrew's Peters have to fabricate their webs themselves and shoot them from a device in their suit. It turns out there was a bit more to this conversation that editors trimmed down for the initial theatrical release. When Sony re-released the movie to theaters in September 2022 as the More Fun Stuff edition, fans got to hear a rather suggestive punchline as part of this exchange.
It just happens. I don't know.
It's so cool, man. Like, I want to see the holes.
While hilarious, the line is definitely more adult than anything else in the movie. When it comes to crude humor, Marvel seems to give the Guardians of the Galaxy a looser leash. Throughout the Guardians films, Peter Quill warns his crew not to look at the inside of his ship with a blacklight, Drax discusses his nether regions being engorged, and Ego tells everyone he's, anatomically correct as he explains his godly existence.
Yes, Drax? I got a penis. Ha! Thank you!
This theme continues during the gang's appearance in Avengers Infinity War when Quill taunts Thanos about the villain's chin looking like male genitals. Additional dialogue from Infinity War that was ultimately removed would have kept the Guardians' thread of crotch-related humor going. In a deleted scene, Nebula sends the rest of the Guardians an urgent message about Gamora with a pretty explicit threat.
Tell Quill not to lose my sister a second time, or I will sew his face to his genitals.
That's her.
Tony Stark isn't exactly the model of a perfect moral compass, especially in his earlier appearances. That being said, the wild side of Tony's personality mostly comes through subtext, in what filmmakers imply rather than what they directly show the audience. One scene deleted from the first Iron Man would have been far from subtle. In the sequence, Tony throws a party in Dubai and stops to flirt with two women.
I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 5.
3.
Exactly.
He walks away with his arms around both of them. As if that wasn't scandalous enough, they pick up a third girl as they stroll through a hallway. Then the camera follows them into the bedroom. Before things go any further, Tony leaves to get some champagne glasses.
Why don't you guys get started without me?
Kinky.
MCU movies have their fair share of innuendos, but a scene as sexually explicit as this is far beyond anything that exists in the Marvel film to date. In a deleted scene from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Ego shows off a memorial he constructed for Quill. The statue is supposed to honor the climax of the previous film, in which the entire Guardians crew saves the planet Xandar together against an attack from Ronan, except some of the details have been changed to stroke Quill's ego. Some of the incorrect visuals of the statue play for comedic effect. Drax is a tiny monkey-like creature on Quill's shoulder, while either Rocket or Groot, it's difficult to say which, is a shapeless blob behind Quill. Gamora and Quill's granite likenesses are more sensual than comical, their physical features manipulated suggestively. Gamora, kneeling while Quill stands, grabs Quill's hip with one hand and strokes his inner thigh with the other. While it's likely the scene was killed for pacing, it isn't a stretch to think that the fully rendered statue might have been a bit too much. Do Marvel superheroes curse? Which words are okay for them to say and which are off limits? Are any heroes averse to swearing altogether?
Shit! Language!
As writers pioneered the beginnings of the MCU, their scripts had to discover not only who these characters were, but also define the appropriate level of mature content for future movies to use as a reference. In the original version of the opening scene of Iron Man, Tony Stark drops the F-bomb. In the final version, most of the scene remains, but editors removed the quick moment of swearing. It's unclear whether screenwriters include the word in the script or if Robert Downey Jr. improvised it. In any case, filmmakers must have decided the profanity was too strong, especially as a first impression of one of the MCU's centermost heroes. For the record, CNBC notes that a PG-13 movie can technically have one F-bomb. Any repeated uses bump the rating to an R. Still, Marvel probably wanted to keep its family audience in mind as it paved the way for the cinematic universe to come. The Guardians of the Galaxy trailer includes a shot from a scene that's not actually in the movie. This tends to be a habit of Marvel, with many MCU trailers showing clips that aren't in their finished film. Sometimes this might be by design, perhaps to misdirect the audience and avoid revealing a spoiler. Other times, filmmakers might remove a scene during the editing process between the trailer's release and the film's debut. The deleted shot in the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer is so risque that it's shocking it was ever filmed. The moment in question shows Gamora with her shirt off, her back and a part of her side exposed as she looks into the camera. It's possible that the shot was originally part of the scene in which the characters change into prison uniforms shortly after being arrested. In the finished sequence as it appears in the film, the camera shows Quill in his underwear and Rocket fully unclothed, but doesn't show Gamora at all. The deleted shot remains public on Marvel's YouTube channel as part of the trailer. Captain America, Black Widow, Falcon, Scarlet Witch, and Vision face off against the Black Order during an epic fight scene in Edinburgh in Avengers Infinity War. In the book The Art of Avengers Endgame, designer Phil Saunders shares that the writers planned on War Machine being in the scene at one point. In an alternate version of the fight, the Black Order would have sliced War Machine's suit in half, leading the audience to believe they just saw the hero die before their eyes. The camera then would have cut to Rhodey, remote piloting the armor unharmed. Had it remained in the film, the scene could have gotten pretty gruesome, depending on how violent the fake-out would have been and how long the moment would linger on the apparent death. For the most part, the romantic and sexual life of Loki remains off-screen. The audience only sees Loki develop a love interest with Sylvie in his self-titled series Loki. However, the God of Mischief tells Sylvie he's pursued other relationships in the past, to which the audience is never privy. During the development stages of Loki, writers plan to show much more of this side of the character. In a photograph, head writer Michael Waldron poses in front of a whiteboard filled with the team's ideas for the show's first season. One of the plot points mapped on the board reveals the writer's plans for Loki with a simple but loaded phrase: doing crazy mischief, aka sex. Granted, in the writing stage of a project, anything is possible. The extent to which the writing team considered these ideas is unknown. Did they develop the concept of Loki's sexual exploits as full story beats and remove them much later, or did they only jot the ideas down as quick notes on a whiteboard and nothing more? We may never know. In Avengers Infinity War, a hammerless Thor embarks on a quest for a new weapon with the help of Rocket and Groot. Eventually, the ragtag trio teams up with Eitri to create Stormbreaker from the power of the star Nidavellir. The route to wielding Stormbreaker, though, was initially much darker. The book The Art of Avengers Endgame chronicles abandoned concepts not only for its namesake film, but also for Avengers Infinity War. Author Eleni Roussos describes an early version of Thor, Rocket, and Groot's adventures together. In this course of events, Stormbreaker would have been wedged in the skull of the long-deceased World Serpent. Rodney Fuentebella, the senior visual development artist, explains there was also an idea of how after they got Stormbreaker, as they were escaping, the children of the World Serpent would attack them, and they would have to fight their way out.
Well, it better be some hammer.
Depending on their depiction, that might be above the PG-13 pay grade. Would they be literal ancestors of the World Serpent, and therefore monsters themselves? Would they be human children? Would they be undead? The answers to these questions would inform the intensity of the scene, but it had the potential to be terrifyingly mature.
Why did the big JC get the axe from the MCU? The Christian son of God very nearly made his superhero debut in 2022. In Thor: Love and Thunder, Thor and his pals travel to Omnipotent City, the gathering place for gods and goddesses of all pantheons. Just about the only major deity missing? Jesus Christ. But he was almost in the movie. In the context of the scene, having Thor meet Jesus would actually make some sense. Thor and the gang have traveled to ask Zeus, the king of the Greek gods, for help in their fight against Gore the God Butcher. The stands are full of figures of worship from all across the universe when they enter the arena. We've got Zeus and his fellow Greek gods, who mostly seem intent on lounging. We've got the god of Korg's people, the Cronin, who's made of rock sitting on a throne of scissors. because rock beats scissors, of course. We also see the Egyptian and Wakandan cat goddess Bast and Quetzalcoatl from the Aztecs. And that's just the start. They're the gods of emotions that our heroes disguise themselves as. There's a creature called Fur God who is sort of a head on fuzzy feet. We even have Bao, the god of dumplings, and some celestials standing outside peeking through a window. So having Jesus in the scene would have made sense. But would Marvel actually have been crazy enough to have Thor meet Jesus? Well, according to Thor Love and Thunder director Taika Waititi, the answer was almost yes. In an interview with BBC Radio 1 film critic Ali Plum, Waititi was asked if there were any gods who didn't quite make the cut. The director revealed that, in fact, they originally intended to have Jesus Christ make a cameo. In the film, Thor's pal Valkyrie even makes a reference to Jesus when she says,
"There's the god of magic, god of dreams, god of carpentry."
Jesus, of course, is described in the New Testament as being a carpenter, so this line was clearly a reference to the Christian Son of God. And according to Waititi, they originally planned to show Jesus in the film after that line of dialogue.
Could be
there
allusion
was
to...
supposed to be a cutaway to you-know-who. Oh, Big J.
Waititi doesn't say why the cameo was nixed, but it's not hard to guess. Just ponder the social media meltdown if Jesus had been in the MCU. Twitter would have lost its collective mind. There would have been endless debates, yelling in all caps, boycotts, think pieces, and memes galore. Add in the fact that the deities in the movie are apparently preparing for an orgy, and madness would have likely ensued. Of course, it wouldn't have been the first time Jesus Christ appeared in a movie, far from it. The Son of God in the Christian religion has led his fair share of biblical epics over the years, and proved himself to be an absolute box office sensation with 2004's The Passion of the Christ. However, even earnest biblical epics like The Last Temptation of Christ have been subject to significant protests, and the irreverent tone of Thor Love and Thunder is very different from the usual religious sincerity of films involving Jesus. It shares more in spirit with a film like Monty Python's Life of Brian, which generated massive outrage in 1979 when a satirical look at the events of the New Testament hit the big screen.
Oh, it's the meek! Blessed are the meek! Oh, that's nice, isn't it? I'm glad they're getting something because they have a hell of a time.
And that was long before today's 24-hour news cycle. It's likely someone at Marvel, or its parent company Disney, decided the quick gag wasn't worth the controversy. If you want to see what might happen if Jesus was thrown into a movie or TV show alongside a bunch of other gods from various pantheons though, it exists in the form of the Starz series American Gods. That show actually featured several versions of Jesus Christ, brought into existence by mankind having several completely different idealized versions of the Christian deity. One is the profoundly white Jesus, worshipped by Middle America. Another is a Mexican Jesus, who was shot helping migrants cross the border. American Gods was never a big enough hit to cause outrage, but it's safe to say that Marvel's Jesus would have gotten a lot more tongues wagging.
The Deadpool movies are so brazenly crass and violent that Fox even had to make cuts to avoid NC-17 ratings in some cases. Here are some scenes that were too wild for the studio. At a 2016 fan event in Los Angeles, covered by comicbook.com, Deadpool director Tim Miller revealed that Ryan Reynolds went a little overboard while improvising a scene with co-star TJ Miller. During the scene when Miller's character riffs on how ugly Deadpool looks after his experiments, Reynolds admitted that their jokes became really dark and hateful really quickly. Tim Miller said of the exchange, "There was a bar scene that was too vulgar for even the R-rated Deadpool. That bar scene was particularly mean and offensive to a lot of people, because TJ and Ryan got together and wrote a version of the scene that we just said, 'Oh my god, this is too far.'" He continued, "I mean, there were so many people offended. It would have really been, we couldn't do it. It was just mean, and so I said, no, we don't have to do that." TJ Miller also acknowledged that some of his jokes went too far, and that he was relieved that some of the gags got cut. Some of the deleted gags made their way onto the Deadpool DVD's special features, but most remained on the cutting room floor. The Deadpool films are known for pushing the boundaries of their R ratings with the violence. There was a scene in the original film, however, that was simply too much to include in the final cut. As producer Simon Kinberg revealed in an interview with The Express, a cut scene early in the film features Deadpool desperately looking for a cure for his cancer.
Yeah, it's our last stop on our Desperation World Tour.
He and Vanessa go on what they jokingly, darkly call the Cancer World Tour to try to find a cure for it. And they end up in sort of their darkest moment in the clinic in Guadalajara with a doctor who is a charlatan. He continued, "Wade realizes that and ends up in a very brutal and dramatic and cool way killing him. And he and Vanessa split up in that moment of Wade realizing that he is in some ways a monster who can't be with this woman." Screenwriter Rhett Reese acknowledged that gruesome Guadalajara scene was just a bridge too far.
Once you see enough desperate people ripped off, you start to feel the itch.
One of Deadpool's superpowers is that he cannot die. Even if he loses a limb or gets ripped in half, he's healed up and whole again in no time. This allowed the Deadpool and Deadpool 2 filmmakers to abuse and mutilate their hero to their heart's content. In the same interview, the actor thought the whole point of a Deadpool movie was to be violent, but the filmmakers elected to scale it back a little bit. Skrine said, "I do the suplex and stuff. I come in and start breaking him down, and they took out quite a lot of beats because it was just horrific. Literally, I'm breaking wrists, shoulders, jaws, and it was pretty hardcore. It did make me laugh that they chose not to put that in because they thought it was too far. And I thought, how can you go too far in a movie like Deadpool?" There was also a montage of self-slaughter in Deadpool 2 that was likely cut for reasons of good taste. When Deadpool experiences a personal tragedy, he attempts to take his own life several times, only to be resurrected each time. The suicide montage was included in the Deadpool 2 Super Duper cut. In another deleted scene, the ending of Deadpool 2 sees Deadpool time travel back to 1889 Austria, where baby Adolf Hitler has just been born. Deadpool stands over baby Adolf's cradle, working up the courage to kill him. The scene ends with Wade making a dark decision.
Maximum effort.
That wasn't the only version of the scene that didn't make the theatrical cut. In an alternate take, Deadpool hoists baby Hitler out of the cradle and posits that maybe Adolf Hitler could be treated well and taught tolerance.
A decapitated corpse returning from the dead to destroy his own allies. It can only be the work of the Scarlet Witch. But was this deleted scene a step too far for Marvel? We've always known that Scarlet Witch is one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Ever since she first debuted her twitchy hand magic and red-tinted psychic abilities, it was clear that few heroes would stand a chance against her. In fact, the entire Avengers crew were turned nearly inside out thanks to Wanda's efforts in Age of Ultron. And it's a lucky thing for them that by the end of the movie, she has abandoned Hydra to join forces with the heroes. Wanda's time as a hero spanned 5 movies, before a seismic change turned her story upside down. The end of the Infinity Saga, told across Infinity War and Endgame, affected Scarlet Witch maybe more than anybody else. After the loss of her lover Vision, Wanda retreats into herself to grapple with the grief. From her pain, we got WandaVision, the 9-episode miniseries in which she psychically enslaves a town of people to live out a blissful sitcom utopia.
This is chaos magic, Wanda. And that makes you the Scarlet Witch.
After realizing that her illusion has come at the expense of the Westview citizens, Wanda decides to do the right thing and tear it all down. But that's certainly not the end of her descent into villainy. In Wanda's most recent MCU appearance, she goes even further, embarking on a full-blown murderous rampage that threatens to bring down the entire multiverse. In Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Wanda Maximoff is anything but a hero. Having left her days as an Avenger behind her, she battles Stephen Strange in an attempt to reunite with her alternate universe children by any means necessary. It's mostly thanks to Wanda that the second Strange movie becomes an ultra-violent horror romp. It's fair to say that children in the audience probably weren't expecting to see the former hero portrayed quite like this, but nightmares be damned, Wanda makes a pretty fun villain. Once she begins her warpath, Multiverse of Madness starts to play out like a slasher movie, with Wanda wielding chaos magic in lieu of a kitchen knife. During the events of the movie, Wanda's powers easily eclipse those of her opponent, Doctor Strange, and his allies. With the Darkhold amplifying her abilities, Wanda is able to storm Kamar-Taj, defeat the many other sorcerers who oppose her, and take down the Illuminati of Earth 838 all on her own. And her powers are just one piece of the puzzle. It's Wanda's hell-bent determination that makes her so terrifying. And if you found it hard to watch the PG-13 movie that ultimately hit theaters, just imagine the horrors that were left on the cutting room floor.
What's about to happen? This is me being reasonable.
Luckily, there's no need to imagine it, as we now have a pretty good sense of what might have been. Multiverse of Madness fight coordinator Liang Yang recently revealed that Wanda was meant to wreak even more havoc in an extended version of her attack on Kamar-Taj. Shared on Instagram, the test sequence plays out in a long take that sees Wanda decimating the warriors on the ground, taking them all out with ease. While this marks an unexpected turn for Wanda and the MCU, it's very on brand for the film's mastermind, Sam Raimi. This is the director who helmed titles like The Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, and Drag Me to Hell. The gory details of Wanda's rampage are a given for Raimi, but unprecedented for Marvel. Even when a supervillain like Thanos wiped out half the universe's population, it was somber and bloodless, as the Mad Titan simply turned his many victims to dust. Wanda is about as far from that as you can possibly get. In a cinematic universe that has yet to delve into R-rated territory, it makes sense that the Scarlet Witch's more gruesome moments will be cut from the film. But it's still nice to know what could have been. If they had fully handed Raimi the reins on this one, the movie may have fully embraced the brutality of the Scarlet Witch and the terrifying implications of her powers.